Hello, I'm Anawultus, and right now I'm going to be telling you about this amazing breakthrough in dimensional tiering that I've made just less than an hour, in fact, less than 15 minutes before I'm recording this. So I was thinking, dimensional tiering, you can go from one dimension, well, technically speaking, you can start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and go up to infinity. And of course, you can only use whole numbers because there's no such thing as half dimensions, etc. And dimensions can't be less than 0. But now I thought, what if... Okay, are you ready for this? Now, dimensions themselves, if you're very well aware of dimensional tiering, they are technically can be looked at on a number line. So you've got a straight line, a one-dimensional measurement, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And of course, I'm speaking about spatial dimensions just to keep parallelism in dimensional parallelism, which is another term I commonly use. Watch my other videos if you don't know what I'm talking about. So I was thinking, what if instead of having dimensions on the number line, you instead put them on a Cartesian plane? And what does that mean? Well, I figured out that you could then theoretically have an infinite number of dimensions in the conventional measuring style, going up by whole numbers from 0 ad infinitum, but then you can add even more dimensions on top of that by, instead of, let's say, the number line is the x coordinate of a dimension, you can then raise it by the y coordinate and have an infinite number of dimensions that way as well. And then I was thinking the z coordinate, etc. And so you get these, I guess you could call them hyperdimensions. I don't know if I want to use that term because people use it for something else. I'm not going to talk about that right now. So the first hyperdimension is the dimensions 1 to infinity, 0 to infinity, in conventional dimensional tiering, specifically when doing parallelistic tiering, where you take dimensions that are of the same kind, such as spatial dimensions or temporal dimensions, or let's even say dimensions of comedy, why not? But then you get hyperdimension 2. So it goes also from 0 ad infinitum. However, it is still parallel to the same kinds of dimensions, so it's spatial dimensions. However, these spatial dimensions are on top of the other spatial dimensions. Now you may ask, how does that work? And the answer is, it's something that I can't even comprehend how it works. But mathematically speaking, it is theoretically possible to have spatial dimensions that work this way. So then I was thinking, now that we've got hyperdimensions, so you go up to infinity, and in both ways, x, y, z, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going up like that, as in sets of infinite dimensions coming on top of each other, and you can count those up. I realized that, of course, then that is also a linear style of dimensions. So you've got one set of hyperdimensions, two set of hyperdimensions, three set of hyperdimensions, and you don't necessarily have to go to infinity. You can have 2 of x, 3 of y, etc. And I was realizing that these hyperdimensions, they also are linear, which means that you can have another hyperdimension on top of that. So that just really blows my mind as to just even thinking how that would even work. But just think about it this way. Dimensions are normally counted on a linear number line. But then instead of doing that, you can apply the dimensions themselves to the measurement of the dimensions and make that a multi-dimensional space. But then, on top of that, you realize that these multi-dimensional spaces are defined by dimensions that are counted linearly, and you can make the multidimensional spaces multidimensional in themselves, and so on and so on. And that's my breakthrough in dimensional tearing. Now, I don't really think I can apply it, because I can't really imagine anybody that has actually done this sort of dimensional tearing or dimensional definition in any fictional work, because it would be amazing, and to be honest, I don't think it's really possible to do this accurately, because it really goes beyond the mathematical limits, or specifically the limits of the human mind to calculate. But just on a hypothetical level, I do find it's quite amazing. So tell me what you think. Do you entirely disagree? Do you think it's just some sort of nonsense that I came up with? Or do you think that it's a great idea? Or do you have maybe something to add to the conversation? I'd be happy to know. Or would you like to collaborate with me on something? That's always a nice thing, or just discuss with me for whatever reason. So thank you all for listening, and I'll be seeing you all next time on Awiltus over and out.